May I have your attention, please? Shabbat Shalom, everyone. My name is son of Yisrayl Hawkins, and I'd like to serve you forever as a priest starting very soon. It's now time to start finding your seats for Sabbath services.
May I have your attention, please? Shabbat Shalom, everyone. My name is son of Yisrayl Hawkins, and I'd like to serve you forever as a priest starting very soon. It's a privilege and honor to present to you the sons and daughters of Yisrael now entering the sanctuary. It's a privilege and honor to present our first speaker, son of Yisrael, Buffalo Bill.
Shabbat Shalom, everyone. You may be seated. May the peace of Yahweh be with each and every one of you. My title today is How to Survive the 1 Hour Burning, found in Revelations 18. Many people out in the world believe they can survive a nuclear strike. They believe their bunkers will save them, and if they're in them, they will be unscathed. But prophecy shows that there will only be a few men left. Who are these few men? First, turn to Isaiah 24 and verse 6. Because of this, the curse has devoured the earth, and they who dwell therein are desolate. Therefore the inhabitants of the men are burned, and few men left. Satan's work right now on earth has many men and women teaching hate, revenge, and changing the laws, or trying to change the laws and substituting them with a bunch of garbage. Yahweh's work on earth right now has only few men and women teaching the way of peace. The few men left and the few women left are the righteous ones who are learning here. Now here's some recent headlines on the news. North Korea says, "Don't mess with us," plans next step. North Korea slams Pence's tough warning against provocation. North Korea blames the U.S. for creating situation for nuclear war, and U.S. F-22s intercept Russian bombers off Alaskan coast. We can see each nation going at it and preparing for war. If you'll turn to 1 Thessalonians 5 and verse 3, it says, "For when they will say, 'Peace, true peace,' then sudden destruction comes upon them, as labor pains upon a woman with child, and they will not escape. They will claim that they have brought a peaceful resolution to the problems they face, and then sudden destruction will come." Please turn to Revelations 18. Revelations 18, and we'll start in verse 10. "Standing afar off for the fear of her torment, saying, 'Alas, alas, that great city Babylon, that mighty city, for in 1 hour your judgment has come.'" Look at verse 16. "And saying, 'Alas, alas, that great city that was clothed in fine linen and purple and scarlet, decked with gold and precious stones and pearls. For in 1 hour such great riches have come to nothing, and every sea captain and all the company in ships, the sailors, and all who learned their living from sea stood afar off. And they cried when they saw the smoke of her burning, and said, 'What city is like this great city?' And they cast dust on their heads and cried, weeping and wailing, 'Alas, alas, that great city in which all who had ships in the sea were made rich through her wealth. For in 1 hour she is made desolate.' Yeshua Messiah, 3 Yochanan, showed us here three times about this 1 hour burning. And just recently, a former Navy advisor, he said that the world could be destroyed from 30 minutes to an hour. We can see Satan's system crumbling. These four horns of the golden altar are chomping away at each other, and the EU is falling apart. With Britain exiting, and the Pope is trying to unite them, but what can they unite under? They're all fighting. And we see the UN is starving people in Africa, creating the situations for drought and famine. These four horns are responsible for the deaths of thousands, hundreds of thousands of people daily. This great nuclear burning is coming, so let's strive to get all the sin out of our lives and try to study to become a teacher. These 2 billion are coming. For my closing scripture, turn to 2 Timothy 2:15. It's a study to show yourself approved to Yahweh. A workman does not need to be ashamed, rightly dividing the word of truth, the law, and the prophets. The way how to survive this 1 hour burning is to be among the righteous and study and follow the instructions of the one sent over you. You can't get into the kingdom otherwise. You can't get into the kingdom through disobedience. You have to be obedient and prove to Yahweh that you can have this rulership over the microorganisms. And with this,
What day of the Omar is it? All right, Omar number 10. At this time, it's a privilege and honor to introduce to you son of Yisrayl, great deacon Yisrayl Hawkins.
Shalom, everyone. You may be seated. May the peace of Yahweh be with each and every one of you. Okay, so today I'm going to get right into it. We're going to be talking about confession, okay? We turn over to Deuteronomy 12. Deuteronomy 12:5. Again, it says, for you to seek the habitation of your father, the house of Yahweh, the place which Yahweh your father shall choose out of all your tribes to establish his name, and there you must go. Okay? It says there you must bring your burnt offerings and your sacrifices, your tithes and your special gifts. There you should eat in front of Yahweh your father. You and your family shall eat and you shall rejoice. Okay? But we had to go to the house of Yahweh. Okay? We had to go to the habitation of Yahweh. If you turn over to Deuteronomy 17. Deuteronomy 17. And look at verse 9. It says, go to the priests who are Levites and to the judge who is in office at that time. Ask for their decision and they will give you the sentence of judgment. You must act according to the sentence they pronounce for you at the place Yahweh your father chooses. Be careful to do all they order you to do. Okay? According to the law they teach you and according to the decisions they give you, you shall do. Okay? It's that law and decisions, the precepts, those ordinances, the instructions that we're given that, we have to follow. You must not turn aside to the right, nor to the left from the sentence they pronounce for you. Okay, but it's the laws, that we have to follow, we have to keep. And they're not some of these instructions, these precepts like Pastor talked about. They're not always a part of the 10 Commandments or part of the 613 laws, but it's the things that help keep the camp clean, that help keep the camp safe, and it's these things that we have to follow. if we let lust in our heart, if we have this lust in our heart, even in our heart, like Yeshua talked about, this illegal lust, that you have to train yourself not to do this, not to have that lust. You go to the priest, like we just read in Deuteronomy 17. You get with your counselors, you work with the priest, and help to help get that out. Okay, remember Yeshua's precept, or his instruction that he gave us. If you look at, you want to turn over to Matithia. Matithia 5, and let's look at verse 27. It says, "You have heard that it was said by the people of ancient times, 'You shall not commit adultery.' But I say to you, whoever looks upon a woman with lust for her has already committed adultery already committed adultery with her in his heart." Okay, so it's these things, like this lust. You have to, get that out. Go with your counselors, and get with them. So whatever we sin, whenever we broken these, these instructions, we have to go and we have to confess these things. Okay. We confess them to the priest. Okay, we have to go and tell them what we've done. If you look at, start over to Yeshua. Yeshua 6. This is an example of, where there was a sin broken. Somebody, they broke the instruction that was given, and they had to confess this. They had to confess for doing it. If you look at chapter 6 and verse 17, it says, "The city and every living thing in it shall be devoted to Yahweh for destruction." Okay, this was the instruction that was given to them. "Only Rechab, the prostitute, and all that were with her in her house shall live, because she hid the spies that we sent and did not betray them. But you, by all means, keep away from devoted things, or you also will become devoted for destruction for taking them." Okay. And then if you look at chapter 7 and verse 1, it says, "But the children of Israel committed a trespass in the devoted things." Okay. Achan, the son of Carmi, he took them. He took some of these devoted things. He disobeyed the instruction that was given. And then if you look at verse 19, verse 19, 7 verse 19, and it says that Yeshua said to Achan, "My son, glorify Yahweh, Father of Israel, and give praise to him. Make your confession to him and tell me now what you have done. Okay, do not hide it from me." Okay, so you can see there, he had to make his confession. Okay, he had to make his confession. This is the same example that we've been taught, we've been shown in these last days. How to do it in these last days. Making our confession. And our confession is not time to come, and complain about, the brother next to us, or how we're made to do these things. It's the time that we come and we tell the priest our sins. We tell him what we've done, and we repent for these things. And the complaining and all that, that's for your counselors, okay? You can go and you can talk to your counselors about these things. So, in the Mark of the Beast, Part 2, Chapter 17, it says, at the risk of sounding repetitious, I must show you that perfection is brought about by one, repentance of ever breaking any of Yahweh's laws; 2, the confession of our sins; okay, 3, baptism by the authorized elders of the house of Yahweh; and 4, conversion by putting into practice the keeping of Yahweh's laws. Okay, it's that confession of our sins. It's the second step. Okay, you have to repent, of breaking Yahweh's laws, confessing our sins. Then you have the baptism and the conversion. You put into practice of trying to trying to, turn from ever breaking those laws of Yahweh again. So, we need to be doing our confessions. We have them every Friday night. We can do our confessions every Friday night. We have the priest, and our counselors that we can go to, and we can talk to them and get the advice that we need. Okay, it's all the time I have. So with that, I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to the next speaker. If you all please stand. Turn it over to the next speaker, Great Khan Kifa.
Praise Yahweh. Shalom, everyone. You may be seated, and may the peace of Yahweh be with each and every one of you. I tell you, I really, really, really love this place. Praise Yahweh. I want to be going over a lot of things today, a lot of different numbers, and I'm trying not to go too fast through any of it. But I want to talk a bit about the work and primarily about this lampstand and about this ark. But before I get to that, I want to show you something that I found a while back concerning some of the websites here. I hope everybody can read that. Okay, so basically what that is, that's if you go to yahwehsbranch.com, you'll see the words come up, "Let my people go," and it's referring to a sermon that was given back, I think, on 11/16 of 13. But if you look it up in the gematria, the words Yahweh's branch, of course, the dot doesn't have it could be just com. And then "let my people go," you'll notice that two of the numbers that come up are exactly the same. They're a perfect match, which I thought, what are the odds of that? Well, around here, pretty great, But the words themselves carry a very significant meaning about the work that is taking place in these last days. The 996 is a distinction. And, if you remember that, I think I got the scripture there in Exodus that, Yahweh will make a distinction, between his people and they're in the land of Goshen. And then also number 166 means to be clear or to shine. Well, that's exactly what, Yahweh's branch is set up for, is to bring forth this message to be crystal clear. And then even in 996, it goes a little bit further. This I thought was really, really interesting because it says to aid, or it says a rope or a chain for frapping a vessel, like if you're tying a vessel down, but also an answer to a cry for help. And it reminded me, I couldn't find the video, I looked for it last night, but there was a video a few years ago with Yahweh's branch, and he would throw the rope to certain individuals. I think it was you'd have to, somebody else could find it. Terrible at finding those types of things. But it was a video that we put out, and you could see him actually throwing a rope to people. It reminded me that it's a cry for help that is being answered. Yahweh, and that's the scripture I wrote down there in Exodus 2:23 through 25. It shows that the groaning of the children of Israel, came before Yahweh, and he heard their cry, and there was an answer. Also, in 166 in the Greek, it shows that this is a perpetual or everlasting, and then the scripture there is the one that talks specifically about Yahweh's name. And it's a perpetual, everlasting thing that, was never meant to do away with, never going to be done away with, no matter how hard they try. So, praise Yahweh. Yeah, I just wanted to get that out there before I started. Now, I had I wanted to talk about this ark for a long time now. Because I started looking into the wood and the things like that back in, I think it was 1998 when I first started, and it's something that's always been on my mind. It's like just constantly brought up in my mind. So I had that in my mind to try to present some information on. And then the day before Yeshua's memorial, I saw this, and I want to show you why I took the picture there. if everybody can see. I have a little help from my technical team here. So you see 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 of these clouds right here in a row above the sanctuary. And of course, I'm at the blue school. I'm looking north. So you see this is east and this is west. And right beneath the western one, you see you see the great chosen branch there. And the only words that you can really make out from the distance of the picture there, it says royal purple. Royal purple. This was 2 days. This was on 4/9. And be turning to Zechariah 4. A lot of these numbers, when you find things, it's like the Strong's numbers are very significant and important, but to me, it's like I find a lot in the numbers of the scriptures as well to kind of show, what exactly is being shown here. And I'm going to show you in a second why I recognize that. But if you look at Zechariah 4, this was seen on 4/9, just the day before Yeshua's memorial. Zechariah 4:9 says that the hands of Zerubbabel have laid the foundation of this house, and his hands will also finish it. That when we're talking about the lampstand and the 7 lamps, this is the completion of Yahweh's plan here. His hands will finish it. Think of Revelations 10:7, and in the days of the voice of the Seventh Malak, that one, the great secrets would be revealed. And they'd be finished, as was explained there. So that was taken at 1. Let me find the right notebook here. 1:57 p.m. Okay, and 1:57. Let's pull this away for a second here. Now, 1:57 means love. Or friends, and think about the 7th era here in the house of Yahweh. This is the era of brotherly love, the Philadelphia era, right? Praise Yahweh. Now, I want to show you why I immediately, when I saw that, I recognized it, because a few years later, and some of the things in the background will date this picture. This is from 2014. And you can see this it says this next. And there was a picture here of a nuclear explosion. But you see the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 clouds here. And I just, what caught my eye on that one, I was coming out of Skype that morning on a Thursday. And I realized it's like a perfectly straight line and they were spaced equal distance. So I wanted to, after I got the picture developed, I wanted to show you. Graph paper doesn't lie. All right. So when I saw this the other day, that was already in my mind, and it doesn't quite line up just as perfect as that one, but it's actually pretty close. These 3 here just kind of moved in a little bit more. But the time on this picture, like I said, it was back in 2014. And this is, it was taken on 11/23, which is corresponding to 11/21. This is a builder of a family name. Think of what we just read there in Zechariah 4:9. We'll read it again. The hands of Zerubbabel have laid the foundation of this house. His hands will also finish it. Now, sometimes when you're looking up words in online or on your phone, they don't have the full definitions and explanations like they do in the actual books. And that's why I like books a little bit better. They're harder to carry around with you. But, this is what I had from online. But when you go to Strong's, sorry, my bookmarker. When you go to Strong's, I have to zoom in. I apologize for the little writing and the big writing. This is really, really interesting. What's written here in the word that this comes from is he says that there's a special emphasis here on the physical tie binding a man to his offspring. You get it? We are the seed of Yisrayl Hawkins, right? We better be the seed of Yisrayl Hawkins. You know, don't ever think that you want to cast that title away. You know, Yisrayl Hawkins is our father. Praise Yahweh. Okay, so now look also though after that, the special tie binding a man to his offspring. The noun can also be used of an animal's offspring, binding his foal unto the vine, and his ass's colt unto the choicest vine. Genesis 49:11. I think we've read that before. I think everybody should know that scripture, right? Well, this is the very things that were shown in the work of this lampstand, and it didn't really occur to me until later to really understand how these two are so well connected. If you remember, you know, when the ark was brought out back in 2006, it wasn't until the Feast of Tabernacles, 10:15, that we had the ceremony, the lighting of the lamps, and much of this was explained in that sermon, and you know, I don't have time to rehearse everything that was in that sermon, but you really should go back and read it because that was a historical event here in the house of Yahweh, and you need to be familiar with it. So the next thing I'd like to get into is concerning this ark, and if I could kind of go back in time, you know, before it was built, we were, you know, I think the Great Khan mentioned it in that sermon on 10:15 in the book of Israel. There was a lot of research that went into what type of wood we were supposed to use for this ark. And there was a lot of contrary opinions back and forth, and this went on for a long time. Not, you know, arguing, but just there was thousands and thousands and thousands of hours of research went into this. I can't even overestimate that at all. Well, you know, so I finally got to talk to the witness on the phone one day, and I was telling him my concerns, you know, because I was seeing what they had listed in, like, you know, Strong's and, not Strong's, Unger's Bible Dictionary and stuff. And I said, I don't think that's right. And he said, well, they're not going to know. He said, go to ACU, because I think they got a Encyclopedia Judaica there. And he said, go and see what they say about it, because they're from that region. So I did. And, you know, whenever you follow instructions in the house of Yahweh, don't be surprised that you get blessed far greater than you were expecting to. You know, if I can make anything clear, this is what it's all about. You know, the work of Yahweh. You think of the wisdom of Yahweh and how He's foretold these things years and years and years in advance. But I made a copy of it back then in 2006, and of course I had to give it to somebody else because I knew I would never be able to hold a piece of paper for that long. So I need to get to, there it is. And then I highlighted in purple so you could see, and then I realized afterwards purple probably wasn't the best color because it kind of made it darker. So look what was in that book. This was the only book that he told me to go look at. Look what it says. According to Isaiah, acacia trees would line the path of the returning exiles and would make the wasteland bloom in the time of redemption. Okay, so I don't know how many geography experts are here, but if you go from this point in any direction for a long ways, you're going to see nothing but mesquite trees. They're everywhere. They line the path coming to this place. But this is what, you know, there's a lot of interesting things in this article. One, you see Isaiah 4:19. There is no Isaiah 4:19. It's a misprint, but they were talking about Isaiah 41:19. So let's go ahead and turn there. Because it's like everything I looked at in this whole study, it just led to something bigger and bigger and bigger. But Isaiah 41:19, is where you see this tree mentioned, but you see it mentioned with 7 trees. There's 7 trees total mentioned in Isaiah 41 and 19. Most importantly, don't forget verse 20 that says, so they may see and know and consider and understand together. Understand together that the hand of Yahweh has done this and that the Holy One of Israel has created it. Now that we went to that scripture, there was a few other scriptures that they mentioned. So I know everybody's getting practice with turning to scriptures. Go ahead and turn to Yahweh 4:18 real quick and raise your hand when you get there. I want to see who gets there first. You got the Yahweh 4:18? There is no Yahweh 4:18. At this time, I'm thinking I can be a proofreader for this company. It's like 2 out of the 4 scriptures are not recorded right. But then I think back, okay, well, wait a second. The witness told me to look at this, and then, well, maybe there's something more to this. 4:18 was the day that we brought out the ark. All right? That was 4:18 of 2006. This feast this year ended on 4:18. If you, I can give you, this is big writing. If you go from 4:18, 2006 to 4:18, 2017, you have exactly 4,018 days. Okay, that was the last day of this feast. Now, the Hebrew word for 4:18 is a kitchen or a cooking hearth. And if you remember what Pastor was talking about on the last day of this feast, what he opened up with in the afternoon service, he talked about how the kitchen started with the butter house. Also, though, you see a covering, or not that one yet, but a cooking hearth. I've heard that, if you cook a pizza in a cooking hearth, it comes out really, really well. You can't really beat that quality. Well, Yahweh saw to it that we'd get an opportunity to taste of that this feast. I think that was pretty timely, right? Well, also this covering in the mantle. Not a mantle like a fireplace, but a mantle, a garment. Like what you see the 2 cherubim wearing here. And this is from the Why the Holy Garments. You actually see that number there, 4:18, I highlighted it, or 4018, and it's a covering, and it goes to, you can tell this is an old book. It goes to the scripture here in 1 Corinthians, I believe that's in. Let's see. But it goes to the scripture, in 1 Corinthians 11:15. And it says that Yahweh gave to man the holy garments to keep as a man's head covering and the talit for wrapping around his body for beauty and glory. See, so he knew mankind needed some help. So he gave us these beautiful garments. And of course, the women, was the hair. And that was what was described in that scripture. And of course, that's why men don't grow their hair long. We have holy garments that are set aside for those coverings, as is discussed in that book. But I'm not going to get too much into the beginnings of the ark, but I do want to just get to the date, because I didn't know, again, when it was starting to being built until somebody else had recorded all the days and dates, that it was built on. And the construction started on 4/5 of 2006, and it went from 4:30 in the afternoon to 5:10 in the morning. 4/5/2006 is exactly 10 years after the 9.3 inches of snow fell here, showing the protection of Yahweh's house. Another interesting thing about 4/5, this last Seder, the 45th speaker actually mentioned that about the 9.3 inches of snow. But also, we've been hearing a lot about the area codes here in Abelin. And it's important to note that on 4/5 of 2003, we switched from 915 to 325. So there's a lot more in all this. But I wanted to give you something to be thinking on, because Yahweh is in complete control. And I think if I can just close with one scripture here in Yael. We'll go to Yael. You should already be there. Yael 2, and then let's look just real quick at 21. He says, "Fear not, O land, be glad and rejoice, for Yahweh will do great things." Look at verse 23. "Be glad then, you children of Zion, and rejoice in Yahweh your Father, for he has given you the teacher of righteousness," the most precious thing that we could ever have. May Yahweh bless all of you. Please stand for the next speaker, the great Kohan Yisrayl Hawkins.
Shabbat Shalom, everyone. You may be seated. Well, watching out in society today, and of course, as we've brought for many years about the authority that comes forth from the seven hills, of course, we're speaking of Yada, who rules, of course, from the seven hills of Rome, the Catholic Church. This last week, of course, things came to maturity with a news personnel named Bill O'Reilly, very famous. He sat on the top of his profession for over 20 years, was number one on all cable news shows, and within 2 weeks he went from being number one to having no job whatsoever. Now, of course, it's very interesting because where did he go? He went to the Vatican, of course. That's where they show him at, is at the Vatican. It'll be interesting to watch to see what else comes from that. Also showing the chaos in our world today, Venezuela, of course, is having riots. They're saying tens of thousands are leaving Venezuela. And, of course, Trinidad and Tobago not being very far away from Venezuela. Of course, they're going other places because they're having food shortage. They're saying medical shortage. But the president of Venezuela is saying that what's occurring here is we're being told we don't have a democracy. Now, they have a democracy, but it's not of the Nimrod system. They want a Nimrod democracy in that government, of course. And they're saying that foreign countries are trying to come in to take their oil, to take their wealth. And we see that even all over Africa. Syria also claiming, President Bashar al-Assad claiming that they're saying that we being Syria, did not have chemical weapons. We did no attack. We're being falsely accused, and we can show why and how. Now, there's an organization called, you'll hear it referred to as the OPCW. That is actually the Organization for Prohibition of Chemical Weapons. Now, they're the ones that's supposed to go into countries and test to make sure that chemical weapons were being used, but they're saying that we don't need to go in and test. We're pretty sure they used them anyway. And Syria is trying to encourage it. Russia is trying to encourage it, but of course no one is going. And listen to what President Assad says. He has some very interesting points. He says if we expose our citizens to sarin gas and they're suffocating and they're dying, why are the people working with them not wearing masks and gloves? Would they not suffocate and die also? Because these things could be faked. And he makes a great point, but you would think that if he opened up his country to an investigation, you would readily send someone in to prove that Syria did it. So keep in mind, think about that also with North Korea. Remember what occurred with Iraq. Weapons of mass destruction. And don't forget, there was a weapon of mass destruction used just last week, or this week actually, and it was the mother of all bombs. Also, very interesting, on Google now, one of the most searched terms on Google now is World War III. World War III. And it's very interesting because you can tell that Pastor, the words that's come forth from the house of Yahweh, of course, starting with Pastor and all of those that are assisting in this great work, this message is going out. People are hearing things, and they may not even know where they heard them to begin with, but they're going to recall them. This man said this, and if you remember what Pastor said on CNN News when Nancy Grace interviewed him, he said, when nuclear war comes, remember I told you that. Now, of course, they're going to remember these things. But it's very interesting because one of the gentlemen, he notices, they ask him, who do you think is going to go to war? And, of course, he says Russia, China, and the other BRICS countries. Remember the BRICS banking system. They're trying to get away from the International Monetary Fund. And then he says Iran, Iraq, all of these people are going to align themselves against the West. And, he's pretty much right. There is going to be an alignment, and there is going to be a group of people that's going to combat. Well, of course, then you get into the French presidential elections, and everybody knows about Brexit, where the UK leaving the European Union. Well, guess who now wants to leave the European Union? France, and they're calling it Frexit. And of course, Le Pen, they call her the Donald Trump of France, she's running for president. She repeatedly has said, listen, the European Union is dying. Well, she doesn't say that anymore. She says it's dead. And don't forget, that's one of the four horns, and there's an alignment taking place. If they unalign themselves with the EU, they have to align themselves somewhere. They can't go out by themselves because they need to tie into some kind of alignment because they won't survive on their own. And then we see tensions building between India and Pakistan. Not that they're not already high, but they're still building. Russian bombers have been flying off the Alaskan coast. Now that's being reported by the United States media. China also right now preparing for worst case scenarios, what the media is reporting. And North Korea says that they will reduce the United States to ashes if they don't back off. But if you watch this right now, North Korea is being used to bring, and you hear it more in the news now, how North Korea is being used to bring China into a trade agreement, to get China. They want China to cut off their oil, cut off doing business with them, put some economic pressure. Them being North Korea, they want China to put pressure on them. They're trying to get China to align up with this buy, sell, and trading and only do it the way we say do it. And that's really the pressure that's going forth. And of course, North Korea is not wanting to do it, but North Korea is being used as a place for leverage to deal with China. Well, is it working? Remember during the feast, the one man said, we don't know yet. One thing we do know is the 85th anniversary of the North Korean army is coming up. They usually celebrate that with a missile or two being launched, of course. And then you have China and Russia. This is very important. China is now building up armed forces around the North Korean border. Russia is now building up forces around the North Korean border. It'll be very interesting to see what becomes of this, because once again, remember what Russia just said this week, warning the United States, do not treat this like Syria. Remember how Russia sees this. Russia sees it as the United States. It's falsely accusing Syria of gassing their people, falsely accusing the president of destroying its country and killing its citizens. That's what Russia's stance is. When they make comments like that, when they say don't do North Korea like Syria, they're saying don't create these false pretenses and go in like you did Iraq. President Putin just referred to Iraq just a week ago, comparing that to Syria. And then, of course, during the feast, we brought out as many news sources reported that the United States had put an aircraft carrier and destroyer off of North Korea's coast, just to find out this last week that it never got off the North Korean coast. In fact, it was going south. And once the Pentagon realized what was going on, they sent it back north. But now that, when you hear that, there's no way you can accidentally send an armada in the wrong direction. There's something taking place. They say now it is going north, and now it's going to North Korea. And of course, they're reporting that Japan is also now sending ships to join that armada. So you have a buildup of force taking place in and around that fourth part of the world. If we could please go ahead and play the news.
Pay close attention. What you're about to see is Bible prophecy being fulfilled.
Welcome to another edition of YPN News, bringing you news as it relates to Bible prophecy and foretold by Yisrayl Hawkins. Well, we've got protests in Venezuela, a Russian aircraft in Alaskan airspace, and of course, more tensions on the Korean Peninsula. But first we start off with Bill O'Reilly. Yeah, many of you have heard of him. Well, instead of reporting on the news, he was in the news this time. He recently met with Pope Francis, shaking his hands at Vatican City during the Pope's weekly meeting with the public. It was also reported that Timothy Dolan, the Archbishop of New York, requested the tickets for him to meet with the Pope. Well, O'Reilly was vacationing in Italy at that time. Well, a number of claims have also come against Bill O'Reilly for sexual harassment, and for that reason, he's been avoiding the spotlight.
The Murdoch family plans to meet to decide what will become of Mr. O'Reilly's sources. Sources close to the network said that he's already out at Fox, and other reports say that he settled with 5 female accusers for $13 million. Now, the New York Times reported on a story that detailed $13 million in settlements between O'Reilly and Fox and the women who accused him. As a result of these recent developments, advertisers pulled out of the O'Reilly show in great numbers. Now, the once cable news king, who some say seemed untouchable, was off the air, at least with Fox News.
Well, high inflation, food and medical shortages, and rising crimes are just some of the reasons for the large protest in Venezuela. So far, tens of thousands have left Venezuela as a result of the crisis. Some say that the best anti-coup plan at this moment is to overcome hunger, to hold elections, to have respect for the Constitution, to have respect for the institution, and above all, respect for the citizens to hold their peaceful demonstrations in accordance with the Constitution.
President Maduro is accusing the State Department of instigating a coup against him, saying that foreign interests want to get their hands on the country's huge oil reserves. Maduro said that he's arming thousands of militia to defend the progress he's made, as well as his predecessor, Hugo Chavez. Now, the frequency of opposition protests has grown since the Supreme Court closed the opposition-led Congress, a decision that was rescinded after both national and international protests, but the anger remained.
Well, in an interview with Sputnik news agency, President Bashar al-Assad, the president of Syria, talked about the recent chemical attacks and the international response. He said that the government of Syria sent a letter to the United Nations requesting a delegation to come to the country in order to investigate what took place with the chemical attacks. But the West and the United States blocked that delegation from coming.
Assad said that kept any investigators from being able to see what really took place with the chemical attacks, and that the attack by the U.S. on the air base was because of a false flag, in other words, a lie. Iran and Russia also submitted a proposal for a team to go to the site of the chemical attack, but that proposal was also rejected by the OPCW, which is the Organization for the Prohibition of Chemical Weapons.
Well, the chief of the OPCW said that they have incontrovertible evidence that sarin gas, or a sarin-like substance was used. But there are many questions over the samples that the OPCW have analyzed. The president of Syria has dismissed those findings of the OPCW, saying, you can see from the pictures that the rescuers rescuing the people weren't wearing masks. They were moving freely against all specifications of sarin gas that they talked about. They would have been dead like the others.
Well, he continued, you don't know if the people who were lying on the ground, if they were dead or not. You can fake this image very easy. You cannot just base your judgment on images and video. From the start, Western media and politicians accused the Syrian government for carrying out the chemical attack on Han Sheikhoun. But Assad denied those allegations. He said that the Syrian government no longer possessed chemical weapons and that their last stockpile was shipped out in 2014 under a deal that even was seen by the OPCW chief and allowed him actually to win a Nobel Peace Prize for doing so. So he basically said, look, we got rid of anything in 2014. Here's the proof. And but yet everybody's still saying they used the chemical weapons on their own people.
3 years later. And this isn't the first accusation against the Syrian government that they've used chemical weapons. We reported in the past as well that that had taken place too. Well, the Syrian president said that he believes that those allegations led to the attacks on the airbase. He said he thinks that gas attack was, of course, like we said, a false flag, citing that if there was a chemical attack or gas leak and there was 60 dead, well, how could the city still function? They didn't evacuate the city. No one left the city. Life continued as normal. Even when they attacked the airbase and hit the arms depot supposedly housing gas used in chemical weapons, there was no gas leakage. So for us, Assad said, there's no gas. This was done just to justify the attack on the airbase. Well, when it comes to executive orders, we've seen recently that President Trump has been signing a lot of things into action since he's been in office. But what about when it comes to the orders on the battlefield? Well, our correspondent, Larry McGee, has information on us regarding who actually has the power to make decisions. Larry, what do you have for us?
There is a question being tabled by analysts as of late as to who exactly is running the country. The sitting U.S. president would undoubtedly say himself, but others have been leveling the accusation at the president, who initially gave the impression of being self and strong-willed, has very quickly kowtowed to the military-industrial complex forewarned by President Eisenhower. In support of this notion, there is talk of increased latitude being granted to American generals to actually conduct their own conflicts around the globe. A frightening scenario for many, given the fact that almost the entire body of the Joint Chiefs of Staff are practicing Catholics in a climate of global warfare which has already been described as having religious underpinnings. In responding on the matter, Medea Benjamin of Code Pink commented that it is ironic that during the campaign we had Donald Trump saying things like, "I know more than the generals," and that he was going to rebuild the military, but he has come out with guns a-blazing, not only calling for another $54 billion for an already bloated Pentagon budget, but also giving the Pentagon wider latitude to do everything from dropping more bombs in Afghanistan, more drone attacks in Yemen, and more threats around the globe. And she thinks that, yes, the generals are taking advantage and are going to be asking for more troops in Afghanistan to see what President Trump will do. The president is believed to be more inclined to pursue more aggressive policies with regard to bombing because there are large numbers of people here in the States who enjoy watching the fireworks. So bombing campaigns are thus an effective tool in boosting one's popularity. Ultimately, however, analysts say it is the decisions of America's top generals that are formulating America's policies for war, and not so much the ambitions of the president. The presidential election in France has much of the world's attention as well. Marine Le Pen, president of the National Front, says the EU is going to die because the people don't want it anymore. The concerns of the people, as reflected in Google Trends, is showing a growing anxiety among the nations over the looming prospect of world war. Google searches for the term World War III are reported to have taken a deep spike. Several citizens from different parts of the world were recently polled to get their opinion on the topic, and their perspectives were as follows. In America, one citizen thought the concerns stemmed from President Trump's recent bombing of Afghanistan, while in London, there was similarly the idea that the U.S. president's apparent eagerness for war was also at the heart of things. In Moscow, citizens say they believe there is a certain revving up of tensions. People are aware of it, and of course they are afraid. With regard to whom the warring adversaries might be, some suspect it could be Korea versus China, while others think that Russia, China, and the other BRICS countries, plus Syria, Iran, and maybe Iraq, would be against the U.S., France, Great Britain, and some of their allies from the Gulf countries. Citizens polled say that it seems that people don't learn from history. The use of nuclear weapons, they say, means the whole planet will suffer. The prospect of nuclear war has been raging between India and Pakistan for years, but not many people are aware of what is at the center of the conflict and the history concerning it. Kashmir is a region filled with tension, a state basically created by the British government in 1947 after India and Pakistan gained their independence. Pakistan was reportedly created out of a Muslim-controlled area, but Kashmir was more of a challenge. It was predominantly Islamic, but its leader decided to join India. That has produced wars over the region, beginning first in 1947 and then again in 1965. By 1999, the two had both become nuclear powers and stopped just short that year of a full-scale war. At present, friction between the two countries is escalating again, largely in the heavily militarized region of the line of control that separates the two countries from each other. Boundaries in the skies are also an issue between other world powers as well. For the fourth time in 4 days, Russian aircraft are reported to have flown near Alaskan airspace. The nuclear-capable bombers are said to have remained in international airspace, but they are also said to have been in violation of what is referred to as the Air Defense Identification Zone, and typically the U.S. responds to such violations and escorts planes away. The last time an event like this occurred was in 2015, so the incident is being viewed as an uptick. Defense officials are saying there is no way to see the incident other than it being some sort of strategic message from Moscow, but it is worth noting that America also carries out the same sorts of maneuvers itself near Russia and other countries as well. For IPN News, I'm Larry McGee. Katan Jeff, back to you.
Well, it seems like everybody is testing the boundaries lately of the other nations.
That's right.
Well, back in January, PBS NewsHour's Judy Woodruff interviewed the director of the CIA, John Brennan, for the second time. Among topics in their discussion was, of course, North Korea. Woodruff asked Brennan if, compared to the nuclear agreement that went through with Iran, did he think the U.S. failed in regards to keeping North Korea from obtaining nuclear capabilities?
Well, Mr. Brennan explained the North had their sights set on the nuclear path for decades, and even though the U.S. put deterrents like sanctions in their way, that didn't matter because of their determination. He admitted it's an unfortunate failure of the international community to find a way to bring North Korea to its senses so that it can focus on the health and welfare of its people who are impoverished, and for him not to be able to invest in a military capability that is only leading to North Korea's continued isolation.
Of course, the question of how close is Kim Jong-un to having the ability to hit the United States with a nuclear weapon was also brought up. The CIA director seemed to think it was too close. He stated the fact that he has ballistic missile capability, and he has said that he is going on the intercontinental side of it, and he has a nuclear capability. To me, that's too close. We should not feel comfortable, Brennan said.
As if things couldn't get more tense in the Korean Peninsula, well, they have. A North Korean state newspaper recently had this warning for the United States and its allies, saying, quote, "Our preemptive strike toward U.S. and its allies will be the most merciless strike, aiming for a complete destruction that doesn't allow for the survival of the enemies," end quote.
The op-ed continued with even more graphic details, saying if the super powerful strike goes forward, the U.S. mainland will be, quote, completely destroyed in an instant. Only ashes will be left, unquote. Well, the surrounding nations are bracing themselves for the worst, but not passively.
Well, it seems in every direction there is a military buildup. To the north, China's military is conducting training drills on the border, which the National Defense Ministry says are routine. And CNN received information from U.S. officials that Beijing is putting bombers with missile capabilities as well as other military aircraft on high alert.
Also further north, Moscow is moving troops and equipment closer to the DPRK border. The Kremlin explains this military movement is for scheduled maneuvers of Russia's far eastern military district. Then to the south, Operation Max Thunder is underway, one of the largest air drill exercises ever between the U.S. and South Korea. The ongoing exercises between the two allies have infuriated Pyongyang and in times past provoked threats as well as more of the missile tests.
Well, to try and calm the battle cry, Secretary of State Rex Tillerson tells the press Trump's administration wants to pressure North Korea to come to the negotiating table and find a solution to the crisis through dialogue. Now, Tillerson said, "We're reviewing all the status of North Korea in terms of state sponsorship of terrorism, as well as the other ways in which we can bring pressure to bear on the regime in Pyongyang to re-engage, but re-engage with us on a different footing than the past talks have been held.
But they have never had success with this kind of initiative in the past, and even the U.S. admits their strategy is heavily contingent upon the pressure China puts on Kim's regime. So far, Beijing has banned imports of North Korean coal and stopped all Air China flights to Pyongyang. China has also shown its support for a tough UN Security Council resolution which has condemned North Korea's missile tests.
But President Trump wants President Xi Jinping to go even further, limiting trade and cutting oil imports to North Korea completely. In exchange for this disconnect, China would receive a better trade deal with the United States.
Well, as we've reported recently, the North Korean monitoring service, 38 North, has been warning Kim Jong-un's nuclear test site is, quote, primed and ready. So when they release new satellite images of what looks like volleyball games taking place at different locations on the site, that seemed to be sending a confusing message. However, the U.S. continues to prepare for a nuclear test at any time. Now, especially knowing the 85th anniversary of the People's Army is coming up, which could be a time for some show of force from the North Korean. And of course, that's usually the time when they do schedule the missile tests on an anniversary celebration or so forth.
Sure. And if they are preparing for missile tests, they apparently are very relaxed in the process.
That's right.
Also, as a precaution, the United States has sent extra assets to the region, including a plane that can detect debris from a nuclear blast. This, as well as the USS Carl Vinson Carrier Strike Group, has been deployed and is now on its way to the Korean Peninsula. The U.S. Navy Group's commander posted on Facebook that his ship's deployment was extended to, quote, provide a persistent presence in the Korean waters.
Well, we need to know, Katan, that there was a great deal of confusion about where the USS Carl Vinson was originally heading. President Trump was saying we are sending an armada to Korean waters. Secretary of Defense General James Mattis also thought the carrier was headed towards the Korean Peninsula. But in a statement to the press, he said she's just on her way up there because that's where we thought was most prudent to have her at this time. But of course, we're going to see it wasn't really the direction that the Armada was headed.
But in actual fact, the aircraft carrier was headed in the opposite direction for military exercises in Australia, so headed to the south instead of the north. Now, this really made the White House and Pentagon look confused and even weak in the eyes of Kim Jong-un. NBC's chief international security and diplomacy analyst, retired Admiral James Stavridis, explained, it comes across to our or your potential adversaries as a lack of determination, a lack of will, a lack of certainty about the signal you want to send.
Right, of course, when you have this big naval fleet and you think it's heading north, but it's really heading south, it's kind of a big blunder.
Yeah, and that's a lot of ships to get turned around.
That's right. Although the whole incident might have been a bit embarrassing for the U.S., Vice President Pence was not bothered by it as he spoke at a recent visit to Japan. He warned North Korea to look at those missile strikes in Syria and the mother of all bombs against ISIS and not to test U.S. resolve. However, Pence did emphasize diplomacy, saying with diplomatic and economic pressure, we have a chance. We have a chance to achieve our objective of a nuclear-free Korean Peninsula.
President Trump was also hopeful, saying in a Milwaukee interview, hopefully he wants peace and we want peace, and that's going to be the indetermination. But we're going to have to see what happens. China, Japan, and South Korea all breathing a sigh of relief for a diplomatic solution, nervous about all the talk of war with their nuclear neighbor.
Of course, they know that if this conflict does go nuclear, it's going to affect all of them, whether they are directly in that area or in the vicinity. When it's a nuclear strike, it definitely goes out.
Yeah, because as the Korean president, North Korean President Moon said, well, it's not just directing these threats at the United States for a preemptive strike, right, but also the United States allies as well. Yeah. So that will bring a lot of people to the battlefield.
Well, if these nations are truly desiring to have a peaceful solution, then there is only one program that can bring this about. The Peaceful Solution Character Education Program, authored by Yisrayl Hawkins and a group of morally minded educators, has the ability to solve each and every problem facing mankind today. Whether individually or globally, the Peaceful Solution has principles and guidelines that can solve the toughest of conflicts. You can learn more about the Peaceful Solution by going to www.peacefulsolution.org. And while you're looking into this program, we also encourage you to contact the House of Yahweh for your free copy of the Prophetic Word magazine and monthly newsletter, which will enhance your understanding of the methods for peace. Here's how.
To contact the House of Yahweh, you can write them at P.O. Box 2498, Abilene, Texas 79604. You can call them at 1-800-613-9494 or visit them on any of their websites at www.yahweh.com, www.yisraelhawkins.com, www.yahwehsbranch.com. And you can also visit our website at www.ypnnews.com. And of course, you can email the House of Yahweh at info@yahweh.com. And for all calls outside the United States, please dial the number on your screen. And of course, don't forget about the best study resource to the Holy Scriptures, the Yisrael Says and Ask Yisrael program, found free online by going to www.yisraelsays.com and www.askyisrael.com.
Well, don't go anywhere. Up next is another exciting message from Yisrayl Hawkins. From all of us here at YPN News, I'm Jeffrey Heimerman.
And I'm Katan Alexander.
Thanks for watching.
At this time, if everybody would please stand, I would like to introduce the greatest teacher in the world, the great Kahan Yisrael, Abel Hawkins.
Shalom, everyone. Hey, you're making as much racket as the others did. Praise God. You may be seated. May the peace of Yahweh be with each and every one of you. We're making as much racket today as we did when had the whole house of Yahweh full. It looks empty now, but with just a few thousand people here. A couple of billion. I don't know how much racket we can make with a couple of billion. They're setting up false nuclear explosions in different places: New York, Brooklyn, New York City, Washington, D.C., and New Jersey. Now, this is supposed to be a training exercise to get the people ready for nuclear war. That's going on now, and got dates here for and locations of where this is going to be. Operation Gotham Shield is what it's called. The best I remember, Gotham means it's after Gotham, England, somewhere in England, Cunningham, England, but it means they got to call them foolish men. These wise men that started the movement, they got to call them the foolish men. And of course, that's what we see today, a world full of fools, and trying to manage an explosive situation that they couldn't even manage when they had swords, when they fought with swords and spears, and never accomplished anything. But now they've been given nuclear bombs, and they're having trouble managing these, as Yahweh said they would. Now, we are the witnesses. We're Yahweh's witnesses that's got to witness what man is doing, what the cause is, the cause behind these wars that are going to take place, and they know they're going to take place. But I hope you remember where we left off in the last during the feast. But it was with Isaiah 45. 44 speaks of the two witnesses. So does Isaiah 45, and it's verse 4 and 5 that we are to witness. We are to witness that there's no gods. There wasn't any gods with Yahweh in the beginning of creation. And, of course, that's what that scripture says. And there won't be any gods at all after this. They simply won't be allowed. A God is shown in Isaiah 14 as being Satan herself, but a God is one that promotes themselves above others, ruling them with a rod of iron or with death. And this is what comes forth from the Nimrod system. The Nimrod school trained armies to collect tribute that didn't belong to them. They put themselves above the people. They didn't care about the people. Yahweh's prophet said, you only feed those who, you only scratch people's back who give you something to eat. And that's that attitude. And then one of the apostles said, in this time period, it's just love for self, that's all. There's no love for each other in this time period. Now, Yahweh, He has His glory firmly set, as the Scripture said, already in heaven, among the heavenly beings. They right now are waiting on the sons of Yahweh, sons and daughters of Yahweh, to be revealed, as the apostles show. But Yahweh's glory, His righteousness, His character, His attributes, they're all known well in the heavens. He counsels the gods, He says. He sits among the gods. Now, He's speaking, of course, of the demons that are leading the gods on earth. The popes, before them the rabbis, they call themselves rabbis. They couldn't call themselves a pope then and reveal what they really were, the God worshippers. But the rabbis worship gods. The four religions, if you could get this in your mind, they were four powers like the Vatican is today. He's the leader of the kings of the earth. Well, these four horns that Daniel spoke of were actually religions with the same power as the Vatican today, but a lesser power because they had lesser people to work with. But there were four religions, religious leaders, religious systems that led the people, that collected taxes and tribute, built armies, each one trying to build a bigger army than the other. Now, they would actually go out and take people captive. The religions would. Religions. This is what they're following today. These four religions has never stopped. They're called a quartet with other religions still leading them today. But their power, this power that was created back there in Daniel or prophesied in Daniel, it's never stopped. Those religions, each one of them believe a different thing. That's why you have friction in the Vatican. They're always fighting and putting one another down. The women who they use as like you would a dog, they use them in this way, but they have There is no such thing as concern for them. They're dogs, considered as dogs that won't be in the kingdom. I'm talking about the Vatican. Anytime they open their mouth or try to have any say as to what they would like, they're quickly put down and a man put in their position. And you saw that here just not too long ago. But the four religions that Daniel saw, those called four horns, they were the mouthpieces of this religion that created an army under the Nimrod system. These four religions all had different beliefs. They were following gods, dead pharaohs, dead rabbis later, as they were called, dead heads, the heads of Yaakov. They had different gods that they worshiped. One god actually permitted their group, one of these religions that's in the Vatican now, was given permission by their god to molest children. Now, but that's not all, but I'm just using this as an example. They are universal. They don't fight against the gods, but they believe they have to uphold that God in order to use that power to get to do what they want to do. They all live by this cross, as they call it. It's a sword, upside down sword. It was so interesting to see it the other day in something that Vice President Pence said. I was shocked when I saw it, but he used this. But I don't even know. I'm sure. I'm absolutely certain this is a signal that they use, as the Masons are full of these things and all kinds of secret things. And it's a word that's supposed to get their attention that means we got to do this. In this case, it was nuclear war that he is speaking of. But in each of these four religions that worship different gods, these different gods, as Daniel showed, they were uprooted and taken to beyond Babylon. Beyond Babylon. And that was prophesied by one of the prophets. Then it was also prophesied in Acts 7 by Stephen, a deacon. Well, these four religions still make up the Catholic Church or the Vatican today. So they're fighting amongst one another. They do not condemn the other's gods, but each one has their gods that they follow, they serve. Worship means to serve. You can Google that and get the same answer. You can look it up in Strong's, but worship means to serve. You either serve Yahweh, the Creator, or you serve one of the gods, or all of them. With the Catholics now, Coptic means Egyptian. Catholic means universal, meaning they worship all the gods. That's what Egypt did. Egypt worshipped all the gods, and Yahweh showed his power over the gods to anyone who's awake and hear and hear the reading, or the preaching. We are the witnesses, and when the Seventh Malak speaks, he prophesied to bring forth these secrets. It's been held over the world for thousands of years now. That's our job. Yahweh says, I will give to them, and they will do this job. That's in chapter 11. Now, the house of Yahweh, we are the ones on trial now, Yahweh knows we'll make it, and he's already said the scepter is ours. That's shown in Scripture, and I brought that out last week. We won't rule like the Catholic Church. We will teach like Yahweh. We will teach and urge one another to go on to perfection. That perfection is total righteousness. Humbleness is the answer to getting there. A humble attitude. Teach me. Brethren, you don't know. I've tried to tell you, but I don't. I know you can't know the intensity of it. But I was always hunting. Jacob and I were the things in the Holy Scriptures, the answer to them. And we were brought up on the Scriptures, and we intensely searched for it. We got with a number of organizations and soon found out, they knew nothing about the Scriptures, and so we moved on to another. But we're the ones that's on trial here. Look on to Deuteronomy, the 30th chapter. But at the same time, Yahweh knows we're going to make it, so he's given us certain benefits to help us in this work, and brought about certain benefits, even some genes that came from Abraham that I showed you during the feast and before. But in Deuteronomy, the 30th chapter, we see here that Yahweh has set before us life by righteousness. You can't just take that on your own and say, well, I'm righteous, Well, that's what the Korahites did. They said, we're all holy, Moshe, you just took this position on your own. Who sent you to be Lord over us? Or ruler over us? But Yeshua said, the work of Yahweh is, if you want to be in it, is to believe into the one sent. So he will, praise Yahweh, and he will teach you or guide you into this righteousness, this total righteousness. I have set before you this day life by this righteousness. That was also said by Yeshua. It was said by the apostles. Everything there. Life by righteousness only. That's the only way you're going to get it. And Yeshua said in the very last chapter of Revelations, blessed are those who practice this righteousness. They'll have right to the tree of life. Well, it's our job to take away God worship. That's the hardest job that I could see. That there's other things that I said to Yahweh, I don't think I'm ever going to get the people to believe this. But this job of making people believe that there is no gods with Yahweh, there's no gods helping him, he wouldn't have their help. Their help would only bring evil like it's bringing right now. They're evil and they're going to bring forth evil. And Yeshua said no tree can bring forth this righteousness. No righteous tree can bring forth evil, and no evil tree can bring forth righteousness. And Yahweh says the only one that's going to do it is the one he sends and inspires to do this thing. Chapter 30, notice at that time we are on trial. We must bring all truth to all nations. That's part of our job. And the fact that no gods was with Yahweh in creation, that's one of the things we've got to convince everyone in the house of Yahweh. You really need every word of this sermon. The gods, this is a hard lesson. And we're led by gods today. There's a strong pull by the gods, the demons, and Satan, who is the chief of the gods, the mother of all gods. Makes me think of that bomb, the mother of all bombs. Now Russia has a father of all bombs. It's 4 times stronger than the one the United States blasted off. I guess you'd call them Goshamites, after the Goshams, foolish men, trying to bring peace through the threats of nuclear war. And now the belief in the horrible nuclear bombs is now being softened, and a great bit of psychology brought forth, saying, well, it won't destroy our city, it won't destroy Washington, a nuclear bomb won't destroy Washington, and then we have all the Christian beliefs that, well, wait and see, if Noah closes his door and the water starts getting too deep, he'll open it for us. Not believing that Yahweh is the one that closed the door instead of Noah. And Yahweh would not open it. No, and he won't open it. He's given everyone the same opportunity to turn and follow and believe the Scriptures. Well, in verse 15, 30 verse 15, see, I have set before you life by righteousness, but also death and destruction on the other hand. Death and destruction, in that I have commanded you. See, he commands you this day, love Yahweh, your Father. He doesn't say anything about loving the gods, but the King James Version does. This is the work of Satan, we know now. We have all the evidence. Even the Catholic Church now admits that his name is Yahweh, even though they misspelled it. I told you I Googled it, and the Google came back and says, is this answer you're seeking? Yahweh, W-Y-A-H-W-E-H, they spelled it right. By walking in all his ways, by keeping his laws, his statutes, his judgments, and Korhites say, well, we're doing that, and they rise up against the work. We're doing that. We just want to go out on our own and do our own thing. And Yeshua says, no, you can't do that. And one says, well, he's doing that. What's he going to be doing? And Yeshua said, that's none of your business. That's exactly what he said. He said, it makes no difference what I tell this other disciple. You do what I tell you to do. That's for your benefit, to get you in the kingdom, so that you may live and multiply, so Yahweh your Father may bless you in the land which you go to possess. But if your heart turns away, you're not obedient, and you are drawn away to submit to gods. Now, even the King James Version says that. So these are things that you could practice looking for and see how they have really screwed up the renditions to keep falsehood, keep the world deceived, and this has been going on now while they had the book of Yahweh hidden, and they had to admit that too, that book of Yahweh, they had it hidden for all these years from the people, and now they're out of the goodness of their heart. They're really good. You know, they follow all the gods, so they must be good. out of the goodness of their heart, then they're going to reveal the name of God. The name of God. You see how deceiving this is? Well, that's the deception we're fighting today. And we're telling the people, no, these gods are just men and demons. They're adversaries to Yahweh. They were not with him in creation. That's what your scripture says. Well, he says, notice now, if you turn to these gods to serve them, to worship them by what? By what? What does the word worship mean? Worship them by doing what? Did you see that? Look at it. Read it for yourself. You worship them by serving them. Now, the number one thing that Satan set right off at the beginning was, don't obey Yahweh. Yeshua straightened that out and taught more on it and said, if you reject the one sent, you reject me and you reject my Father. So you can't do that. You've got to humbly practice these things that you're told to practice. If a counselor tells you something that I don't tell you, please report it to me. Don't report it to me. Report it to the South office if you're a woman, to the men's general store if you're, to the men's school, and I will get in it myself if I have to get it straightened out. We don't want any falsehood in the house of Yahweh. Praise Yahweh. Now, verse 18, you better believe all that the prophets have spoken. Don't be like a Goshamite and start telling the people, no, you're not going to die with these nuclear blasts. You are going to die with these nuclear blasts if you don't have Yahweh's protection. That's the only thing that's going to save you is Yahweh's protection. All the wicked, none of the wicked will understand. The wise will understand because they humble themselves and listen to the one sent, who is declaring this night and day in letter, in broadcast, in person, so forth. I declare to you this day that you will perish. That's the same thing he told Adam. Now, if you don't follow these laws and you go out to serve these gods, Satan says, disobey, be like the gods. That means nothing to the Christians. They still can't see a difference there. Then they find out his name is Yahweh. Well, that's not going to help them any if they don't put it together and see that Yahweh is not a God, that all the gods are evil, like he says in Genesis 3:5. This is the witnesses, the two witnesses, their job is to do this. The sermon I'm preaching today is inspired by Yahweh and commended that I do this. I declare to you this day that you will surely perish. You will not prolong your days. Look at verse 19. And I call heaven and earth to witness this against you. I call heaven and earth. We're on trial. But we've come further enough now that we, as Yahweh had me announce during the feast, we hold that staff of righteousness. That Yahshua was given to Yahshua by inheritance. Let's going over to chapter 32 of Deuteronomy. But we hold that scepter of righteousness only, not a mixture of righteousness, part obedience and part disobedience. Okay, Deuteronomy 32, and look at verse 20. He says, and he said, I will hide my face from them. To understand that, look back to chapter 30. He says, now this perfect law is therefore written for you. Teach it to the children of Israel. Teach it to them. Well, the children of Israel didn't want it taught to them. any more than the Christians want it taught to them today. And Yahweh has to click something in the mind in order to make that change. It's called to call you. That's how it's described. It may be set with a booklet that's blown around the post. There's a man here today because he stopped at a roadside park, saw this booklet that was blown around a bush. I guess that bush was ever burning, as long as it had that booklet there. Well, he took part of that flame and read it, and it was, "Why aren't your prayers answered today?" He turned around and came back in the other direction to the house of Yahweh. He was going somewhere else, he said. But he came to the house of Yahweh and been here ever since. And this perfect law is therefore written for you. Teach it to your children, to the children of Israel. Well, Deuteronomy 6:25 says, teach it diligently to your children. To the children of Israel, put it in their mouths. So, put it in their mouths. That is where they'll be speaking it too. That's the reason I urge you to push the children. Let them, this is what he's saying to you. Push the children so they can teach this themselves. The apostle says, do you teach others? Does this not teach yourself what you're teaching others? So they'll teach others. They'll teach themselves as they teach others. Put it in their mouths so that I have this perfect law bearing witness, showing, you should add the word showing there, showing those who reverence Yahweh. But when I have brought them into the land flowing with milk and honey, the land which I vowed on earth, on oath to their forefathers, and they have eaten to the full and grown fat, if they turn to gods, well, here is more that's just read right over, as if it means nothing, like Genesis 3:5 showing evil like the gods. And they just read over that. And they do the same here. If you turn to gods and worship them, that's serving them. Cain served the gods well. He killed his own brother. That's service to the gods. Worship them, breaking my covenant and provoking yourselves. It's not Yahweh you're provoking. You're provoking yourselves. And they deliberately make these little changes as they translated this or rendered it. 21. Then when many disasters and troubles have come upon you, on them, this perfect law will testify against them like a witness. Well, you were told before you ever caught cervical cancer what caused the cervical cancer. Can't say I didn't tell you. I brought it out even in X-rated sermons. Testify against you this day like a witness, for it will not be forgotten by their descendants. I know what they are disposed to do, their evil passions and tendencies, even before I bring them into the land which I promise on oath. On oath. This right here is Yahweh saying, as he told Moshe after that, this is a stiff-necked and rebellious people that's going to be possessing this land. And the Christians are running around teaching all over the world that these people kept the laws, kept these laws of Yahweh. Well, they're all liars. As one of the apostles said, Christians are all slow bellies and full of lies. Slow bellies meaning they have their stomachs really tore up from the pork they're eating. Well, go back over now. You can see that. And look at verse 11. I'm sorry, chapter 32 and verse 11. As the eagle sews up her nest, as she flutters over her young, spreading her wings to catch them, taking her young and holding them up, so Yahweh alone, you get that? Alone. So Yahweh alone did lead him, and no God at all was with him. This is not mistranslated. It's a perfect translation. Look at verse 16. They provoked Yahweh to jealousy. No, they provoked themselves to jealousy. And that's the correct translation of this, is the great Kohan Yahuda brought out. They provoked themselves to jealousy with their gods. This is what God worship brings. They provoked husband and wife, provoke one another to jealousy. They do the same thing in businesses. You see it all the time, constantly. They do the same thing nation to nation now. Hatred. They provoked him to anger. No, they provoked themselves to anger with their abominations. They sacrificed to demons. That is absolute truth. The apostles taught this. The Savior said, look what you did back there. You didn't worship Yahweh. Was he supposed to think that you were offering sacrifices to him? It was demons whom you offered your sacrifices. Well, you know the demons now are gods. I'll prove to you in a little while that they make men gods too, hoping they'll go up there and join the other gods. They sacrifice to demons, God, that means gods, which are not of Yahweh, to gods they did not know, to gods newly come up, to gods your fathers did not worship. You are unmindful of, and you forgot the rock that begot you, your Father who formed you. When Yahweh saw them, he abhorred them. No, this is not true. They do these things. They make sentences, say things to bring dishonor upon Yahweh, to get you to thinking that Yahweh is nothing more than a vengeful God. No, Yahweh has already warned you. Now he's going to let you burn your fingers, get your fingers burnt so you won't touch the hot stove again, because his sons and daughters provoked him. And he said, I will hide my face from you. I will hide my face from them. I will see what their end will bring. That's mistranslated too. I will see what their end will bring. It's actually, I will see what the end, or I will show you what the end will bring you. And of course that's shown in Isaiah 24, 1 through 6, and 150 other scriptures. For they are a perverse generation. They're not following Yahweh. They are children in whom is no faith. That word faith, it actually means established, trustworthy. That's what Yahweh is now in heaven. His glory is firmly set, and he's trying to get your glory firmly set among the heavenly beings. That's why you're listening here today to this sermon. He's one more step closer to getting your glory firmly set So the people, the individuals, the beings in heaven will know that they can trust you along with the microorganisms that make up the earth. This word, faith, it means established trustworthiness, faithfulness, steadfast, verified steadfast, established. Notice the faith is established. It's already established by Yahweh. That is His glory. It's us who must learn to follow. Humbly follow. Never object. Be quick to follow it. We want to go now to, we got 31. We're in 32. Let's go to, keep going. Verse 21. They provoke me. No, they provoke themselves to jealousy by that which has no power. They provoke themselves to anger. Remember, Yahweh said to Cain, why are you angry, Cain? Wake up, man. Why are you angry? If you do righteousness, you wouldn't be. They had a man on the news, I believe it was this Friday, and he was an old man. And they were asking him what he contributed this to. And one of the things that caught my attention was he never held revenge. Two wrongs don't make a right. He never ever retaliated, he said, against anything. And he had his mind set on helping others. And he was, I'm thinking they said 124 years old. that could be wrong, but he was old. They worthless gods. With their worthless gods. It looks like with all the things said, and the King James Version is close to these, a person, if they read their Bibles or paid any attention to what they read, they would eventually start picking up on some of this and saying, these gods are evil, like the Scripture says. I will make them jealous. No, I'll show them that they are bringing jealousy into their own minds by those who are not a people. I will provoke them to anger. No, I will let them provoke themselves to anger by a people that has no understanding. My anger. No, that's their anger. Their anger has kindled a fire. Now this, he's showing here, kindled, just started. Their anger has started a fire, just like it did with Cain. For a man to kill his own brother, he had to be pretty angry. A fit of anger, as they used to call it. It will burn to the grave below. It will continue. Now this is a prophecy. It will consume all the earth. You see that? It's going to consume all the earth with all its harvest and set afire the foundation of the mountains. Their foundation of their mountains is a place like Washington, D.C., New York, and so forth, who set the laws. I will, 23, that's they will, heap destruction upon themselves. I will send my arrows against them. That's what I'm doing now. I'm shooting the arrows at them, to the audience who's asking them questions. 24. They will then be burnt with hunger and devoured with burning heat, consumed pestilence. That's the disease epidemics. It's what's taking place right now. New ones coming up all the time that they're having to deal with. If I wanted Benjamin Hyler to bring a sermon during the feast, but we never did get time. But the diseases that's in human beings is also in animals. Dogs, cats, chickens, horses, cows, all of them. And of course we're trying to deal with it. This pestilence, it's a consuming thing in this time period, this generation, the worst of ever, the worst of everything. And of course the deadly plagues, Matthew 24:7, the Savior spoke of this thing, and then 21:22, he said it'd be the worst ever in the history of man, this generation. And they will bring against themselves the teeth of the wild animals, that is the pork, the swine, and the poison of the serpents. They're making medicine out of that. The poison of the serpents. You see it every year before the rattlesnakes. Sometime during the rattlesnake season, as they call it. The serpent's dust. The sword that this is speaking of here, of course, is the cross. The same thing that was shown to Constantine in the heavens, and it said, by this you will conquer. The sword, upside down. I want to show you that article that caught my attention. North Korea threatens to reduce U.S. to ashes with super mighty preemptive strike. If you can read those headlines. North Korea threatens to reduce U.S. to ashes with super mighty preemptive strike. Well, North Korea state media has warned Washington. President Donald Trump's hardline stance against North Korea. Vice President Mike Pence vowed an overwhelming and effective response to any potential attack from Pyongyang, stressing that the sword stands. The sword stands. Point down. The sword stands. You see that cross I've made you right there? The sword stands. I believe he sent a message to the Catholic Church, by this you will conquer. The same thing that Satan sent to, of course, one of her leaders sent to Constantine. Well, the sword, the cross that's leading this, using spears, of course, and rocks and hammers and anything to fight with. Now they have the nuclear to fight with, and they're threatening to turn one another to ashes. And that's exactly what Yahweh says they're going to do. There'll be ashes under the feet. You remember that? There'll be ashes under the feet of the righteous. Malachi, the 4th chapter. The sword without and the terror within, we're seeing that all over the world, all over that fourth part of the earth right now. Destroy the young man and the virgin, the suckling and the man with gray hair. It's, as Malachi said, it's going to destroy them all. Be ashes. So Pence wasn't the first one to tell that. Malachi told it before he opened his mouth. Yahweh told it. If you look to Isaiah 24, you'll see the prophet Isaiah telling this same thing and telling you exactly how it's going to end. Isaiah 24, he says, behold, Yahweh makes the earth empty. He doesn't make it empty. Yahweh is allowing rebellious mankind to go his own way, and he's telling him you're going to empty the earth. You're going to empty the earth by what you're doing here. But they won't believe him. He told Cain, why are you angry? Keep my laws and you won't suffer this. If you don't keep my laws, sin is going to be at your door. And you'll have to overcome it. You will have to overcome it. So Yahweh allows the earth to be emptied and made waste, perverted, face of it, and scatters abroad the inhabitants. And it will be as with the people, so with the preacher they're following, the religious leader, whoever it is they're following. Now, each Christian organization will fit in the Catholic Church somewhere. That's the reason that they agree so quickly, because there's 4 different groups of these people. Pharisees, Sadducees, Essenes, and Herodians all are on the hills of Rome at this time. So the Christians, if whichever one they want to believe, whatever God they want to follow, can fit into that group right there. But they're all following this leader. That the leadership that these 4 put together to bring forth this great army, and all of them work together to bring forth this ruling organization. And it will be with the people, so with the priest, with the servant, so with the owner, with the maid. He names them all here. The seller, the lender, the borrower, he who gives usury. See, he names it all. They're going to be burned up. The land will be utterly emptied, utterly plundered, for Yahweh has spoken the word. He has prophesied in advance. The earth mourns and fades away. The world mourns and fades away. The haughty people of the earth languish. The earth also is defiled. That's what Yeshua said. Worst ever, sickness and disease epidemics, because they have transgressed the laws. Because of this, the earth is going to be burned, Yahweh says in verse 6, and few men left. Burned. There's no way the earth could have been burnt in 712 BY. 712, that's when that was written. 712 BY. Verse 17, fear and the pit and snare are upon you, O inhabitants of the earth. He's speaking of trapping here, like trapping of animals, but trying to display this to where you can see what the nations are doing with each other. As Malachi Martin brought out now in the book The Keys of This Blood, he shows that the Catholic Church would use propaganda to get certain people to do certain things. Now, they give their leadership, the spokesman of the group, the little horn, that's the Pope. They send him with messages from this one to that one. I notice the talk is now that Trump is going to visit with him, and Trump has changed his mind about the global warming, and he's going to visit the Pope and, of course, get orders from the Pope as to what comes next. The division, Russia says, I will recognize. This is another quartet member, remember. I will recognize West Jerusalem as the capital if you will let East Jerusalem be that of the Palestinians. So Russia has a hand in this. You see this? They're saying, I will do this if you'll do this. The quartet all has a hand in this. And of course, they're trying to work under the leadership of the Vatican, who's the leader of the kings of the earth. So they're doing what the Vatican says to bring this about. So that prophecy could be fulfilled. When you got dealing with Israel, as we see that is taking place, not openly. Shaul and I were, I think it was probably the last time we were assigned to go to Israel. We went up on the Temple Mount and we saw the chief Palestinian priest. I talked to him at length. I had the temple brochure with me. It might not have been the last time, was it? No, more? I had this temple brochure, and we visited with him for quite some time, and I had him convinced. And I showed him this picture, and his eyes lit up. And I could tell, that he saw a hope for peace here. So later, Shalom took our temple brochure, the one that I had already presented to all Israel to begin with, but he didn't take it until the news came out in Israel that the Palestinians accepted this. He takes it and goes up and presents it in his manner, which was Bulldozer Shalom, is what they named him. And of course, he made the man angry, and a war was on. It lasted it hasn't stopped. But anyway, what I want you to know is, when presented the way that it should be, Yahweh's way is acceptable. When it's not presented correctly, but with a threat of war behind it, they're going to fight back. And that's what you're seeing today. I don't know everything that Shalom told the man, or what he demanded of the man, or demanding of the Palestinians. I just know that the man was convinced when we were there and taught him this about the peaceful solution to rebuilding the temple. But it was a peaceful solution that would have brought peace to both parties. Well, anyway, the earth is going to be burned because there's no laws here presented of peace. There's no laws being presented except for the house of Yahweh. What is coming forth from these four religions that sit on the seven hills of Rome, what is proceeding from that four quartet buildup that we see in Revelations is bringing nothing but hatred, and it's bringing it among the preachers, as we see in verse 2, among all the businessmen here that is shown here in this verse 2, among the whole earth is suffering from it. They're even defiled. The earth is defiled and the people are defiled. So it's bringing forth confused minds. And in verse 17, he shows this trapping method of setting snares in order to entrap someone. The Vatican does this with words and promises that are never fulfilled, but words and promises. Malachi Martin said, I believe that's in the book, The Keys of This Blood. He told how the Catholic Church was at war inside itself. And the Pope in the earlier crusades, they would go and tell the people, stop fighting among yourselves. Come join us, bring whatever tool you have to fight with. We'll go down here and take the land, take the possessions of this country, these people who keep the Sabbath day, and they're peaceful people. They have nothing to fight with. We can take them easily. We will split all of this wealth. All of you will be wealthy the rest of your lives. Well, of course, that didn't come to pass. I mean, even when they took the country, the Vatican was the one that took the country and had say as to who they would give it to. Just like South America, the people are still suffering right there from the same thing. and they were begging the Pope to change the laws that was there. If you're not a Catholic, you can't even own land. And they were begging the Pope to change it, but he would not do it. So we see the same strategy taking place, an entrapment. They go out and fight and give up their lives and so forth, but who's to gain by these wars? Who is it that's supposed to gain by it? Well, the Pope, the Catholic Church, the Vatican hopes to come out on top. United States hopes to come out on top, and so does Russia. China is mentioned, but she's not a member. Now, there's several other people that's not members of the quartet, and they're each one seeing what is taking place with these traps that are being set here. It's a traps. In verse 17, he's showing you here that the nations are setting up to bring about this destruction, the depopulation that we see in the first 6 verses. Depopulation, where the Vatican says, according to Malachi Martin, that only Catholics will be left. Well, where does that put the Christians that's followers, got their hope in the Pope? Where does it also put the ones in Russia, the 10 kings that we showed you here recently, the 10 kings, one of them in Russia, but they're scattered out through the nations? Where does that put them? They're going to disappear, and they know it. Therefore, they're going to see this. They're going to see the trap that was set for them, and this is what brings the war and fighting. And this is a scenario you see here that he says it's going to burn the earth and few men left, and then he goes into detail here, showing you, verse 10 shows you, the cities of confusion are broken down. The cities are of confusion. It's going to destroy them. In verse 18, and it will come to pass that he who flees from the noise of the fear, he who flees, where's he going to run to? There's no place on earth that's not going to be touched, and now they're trying to even stop them from coming across the border, from anywhere, from crossing one border into another. Will fall into the pit. The trap that was laid for them, you know, Hitler spent a long time laying the traps to get rid of the people who kept the Sabbath day or wouldn't eat pork in Germany. A long time. Well, these plans are made, the pits are laid, the snares are set, the noise of fear has come upon them, but they don't know what to do yet. We're the only ones that's telling them how to survive this thing. And the word is getting out. We're also telling them the name is Yahweh, and they're getting millions of telephone calls. They will fall into the pit, and he who comes up from the midst of the pit will be caught in the snare. So there's no escaping this. The propaganda, of course, is the news media. They put everything in there and they put things to deceive the people in there. As Trump said, they're liars. They're false teachers. They bring forth the news that is lies. Okay, now he says, for the windows from on high are opened. The windows from on high. Well, now, if you remember Revelations, I brought it to your attention how the house of Yahweh is opened for this to be seen. And we are broadcasting it everywhere. And the foundations of the earth, notice, are shaken. The foundations that he's speaking of here is Washington, D.C., New York. This is where the money lies that Malachi Martin also showed is managing the nations. Money, people with money are having it their way, and he says they're big money, and they can say what nation stands and what nation falls, and the Vatican will see to it that it's carried out. The earth is utterly broken down, The earth is dissolved clean. The earth is shaken exceedingly. That's what we're facing right now with this nuclear war, that they're doing drills to try to soften the attitude against it. The earth will reel to and fro like a drunkard, and will sway like a hut. The transgressions in it will be heavy upon it. It will fall and not rise again. And it will be, now this earth is people. It's not speaking of the physical earth that will fall and not rise, because it is going to be rebuilt. And it will come to pass in that day that Yahweh will, now here's again another false word. Yahweh is going to punish. No, he doesn't do that. Yahweh is going to prophesy the host of the high ones who are on high, and the kings of the earth upon the earth. They will be gathered together like prisoners. This is what's taking place now. If you'll just watch your news, this thing right here is called refugees, and it's taking place right now. They're gathered together as prisoners, are gathered in the pit, and will be shut up in the prison. After many days, they will be visited. This is taking place all over that fourth part of the earth over there right now, and we see it almost daily in the news. Then, notice what's next. The sun and the moon are going to be darkened by this bomb, nuclear bombs that didn't exist in 712 BCE. 712. If you go over to Revelations now, Revelations, and we'll see, because you can't understand this fully without Yeshua's writings. And we see it, and where it comes from, how it starts and everything. It's beautiful the way that Yahweh allows his house to see this. Remember what we read in Isaiah 24, and go to Revelation 6, and remember the four religions that Daniel give us knowledge of that would combine, and they would be transplanted to the seven hills of Rome, as Revelation 17 shows. They'd be transplanted. Revelation 6, verse 1. And I saw when the Lamb, that's Yeshua, opened one of the seals, showing his house now. This is Yeshua opening the seals, but he shows this only to his messenger. And he tells you this in Revelations 22, verse 16. In Revelations 11, I will give to my two witnesses to know this. And Isaiah 45, I'll strengthen you with this knowledge. Remember all of those. I, Yeshua, the Lamb, and I saw when the Lamb opened one of the seals, and I heard as it were one of the quartet, the four living, Daniel 8:22, creatures, the quartet, the uprooted ones that's taken to Rome, saying, as with a voice like thunder, come and see. And I looked, and behold, a white horse, white. But he who sat upon him had the means of war. He didn't have the means of peace. He had the means of war. And authority, the word crown there, of course, authority, that's Revelation 13:2 and Revelation 17:1 through 8. He has authority, this to reign over the kings of the earth. It's none other than the Vatican. A bow was given to him. Weapons, big nuclear weapons of war was given unto him. That is, at his request. Not that they were handed to him and he used them. No, but he's the leader of the kings that have these nuclear bombs. So he's setting them up. He's setting the trap here and there. Got it well laid to depopulate the earth. And I looked, and behold, a white horse. Falsehood. Just falsely white. Deception. And he who sat upon it had a bow, weapons of war, and authority was given unto him, and he went out, conquering and to conquer. That is his purpose in this time period right now. And when he had opened the second seal, I heard the second creature say, "Come and see." And there went out another horse that was red. You see blood here pouring out, and power was granted unto him that sat upon it to take peace from the earth. Take peace from the earth. Remember that now. Take peace from the earth. And that they should kill one another, and there was given unto him a great sword. He was the greatest. I brought this out the other day. It's shown vividly in Revelations 13:13. Remember? Revelations 13:13. Mighty above all. Great should be greatest. That word actually is translated in Hebrews 8:11, greatest. It was translated great here. It should have been translated greatest in this place right here. Is given to the United States the greatest army, the greatest navy, the greatest marines, the greatest weapons. Everything was the greatest that's been given to the United States, and more of them in number even than the other nations put together. But we see now the way the power is mixed up, that a little nation like North Korea can stand up and boast that she can turn the United States to ashes right now. Well, that's the trouble with war. There's no winning. There's no winning in this war. Let's go over there and bomb them people and kill all these people to keep them from using a chemical weapon to kill these people. You know, it's just none of it makes any sense at all. Well, the greatest sword was given unto this nation here that started taking peace from the earth. This was one of the snares, one of the traps that was set up, as we see in Isaiah. Take peace from the earth. Verse 4. The greatest sword. The greatest sword. Revelations. Let's turn over to Revelations and read that again, because we've got to close here quickly. Revelations 13. Look at verse 13. Revelations 13:13. And he does great wonders. This is the one that takes peace from the earth. He does great wonders. Now that's over that fourth part of the earth, remember. Over the fourth part of the earth. But they don't quit there, remember. It spread then to where the sun is darkened, the earth is burned, and few men left. But verse 13, and he does great wonders so that he makes fire come down from heaven upon the earth in the sight of men. Well, of course, that's the same thing that we just got through reading in Isaiah 24 and verse 18. And that 13:13 means it's different, it's superior, outstanding, excellent, more excellent. Yes, the United States is more powerful than all the other nations put together. If you look back to verse 11, you'll see what their purpose is, and they're working to bring about the Vatican's wishes that Malachi Martin expressed to have all of them live Catholic lives with the number 666. Well, verse 11, and I saw another beast coming up out of the earth, and which had two horns. That's Christian and Catholic, of course. but he spoke like a lion, and he exercised all the authority of the first beast. The first beast was, of course, the great Roman Empire before him, and caused the earth and those who dwell upon it to worship. Notice, this is a religious war, to worship the first beast, to be like the first beast. And he does great things. He causes fire to come down from heaven. That's 13. Then verse 14. But all of this is deception. Every bit of it is deception. It's not going to bring peace ever. It's going to destroy the earth, is what it's going to do. And deceives those who dwell upon the earth, those who, with those acts of power of bringing down fire from heaven, which he had authority to do in the sight of the beast. So the beast is giving the United States, no matter what you see coming forth from their mouth, the beast is giving this United States the authority to do this, to take peace from the earth, and then to bring about the rest, the instructions, saying to those who dwell upon the earth that they should make a likeness of the beast. Well, you see that in their courts, in even the Supreme Court, bringing forth the will of the Vatican, like sodomy, which had the wound of the sword and did live, and had power to give life unto the likeness of the beast. Yes, he's got the power. The courts are on his side, and they're passing laws all the time to get the traps set, the snares set, to bring this about, that to be like this Catholic Church, and cause that as many as would not, notice, to be killed. That they should be killed. Those who won't submit to the Vatican, to the what they call democracy, to the worship of the gods, evil like the gods, that they should be killed. And then, of course, keep Sunday instead of the Sabbath day, verse 16 and 17. And then the number, they're going to prevent them from buying or selling their oil. Hurt not the oil in all of this. This is going to be a leverage forever, they think. Hurt not the oil. So they'll stop them from buying and selling, which they have the power to do. They already exercising that power. They call it sanctions. They got sanctions against Iran, North Korea right now, but North Korea lives off of its own land, so it's not bothering them. Here is wisdom. Let him that has understanding count the number of the beast. Well, I counted that for you. It's written in the mark of the beast. I wrote it years ago. Many people are here because of those books. They're online. Anyone can get them online now, I think. I think they can. I think they have that program ready. And they're certainly on, and will be very soon, if not already, on the Yisrayl Says program. But I think they're on Facebook and a number of other places where you don't have to buy the book. You could just read it online. It's free. And that and all the other books, too, will be, if they're not on there now, we're working to get all of those books out there for everyone to read what they want to read. May Yahweh bless you, and I'll turn the services back to the next leader. I love you.